Welcome again to Cottage Talk. I am Russ Goldman. Joining me right now is Emilio Danella and Fulham legends Robert Wilson and Gordon Davies. This episode, we're going to look back at Fulham's season. We're going to share our thoughts on what was a great season for Fulham. The second half of the show, we're going to talk about what's next for Fulham because I think we're all interested in that. We'll talk about that coming up. But before we do anything else, let me welcome everyone back to the show. First, Emilio, welcome back to the show. Look forward to doing this with Gordon and Rob and you tonight.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to do the show with these guys every time. It seems months ago that we did the last one. I can't remember now when it was. Was it mid-season break after the World Cup? I think it may have been around that time. But it's, I always think about all the seasons coming in thick and fast. We do these end-of-season reviews, and obviously we've got a lot more to cheer about this season than we've had in others. But yes, I'm looking forward to talking it through with these guys, see what next season holds in store for us, and really just enjoy the moment because we don't always see our club successful. Yeah, let's just enjoy and relish what we saw the last 9 months because we did see some entertaining football, didn't we, guys? I think we saw, and if anything, we're disappointed we haven't got more points on the board. That says a lot about being a Fulham fan. And Gordon thinking I'm Mr. Negative here, but I think ultimately it's in theory, we should have had more points on the board.
Oh, here we go,
Gordon. I agree with you, Emilio. I 100% agree with you.
Should have had more points on the board.
Okay, you guys are right though. I will admit, I will give Emilio and Rob that one. They are right, but they are focusing a little bit on the negative, right, Gordon?
Well, as ever, we finished 10th in the league, and Emilio's still sort of saying we should have done better. So he's setting his sights rather high after saying, I think at the beginning of the season, that if we finish, 17th, then I'll be happy. So it's nice that there's a little bit of positivity there from Emilio, but there could be a hell of a lot more with the season that we've had.
Okay, excellent stuff. And I look forward to going through this show with the three of you. And I just want to share some comments. They're flying in. This is from our friend Chris Goodwin, who happens to be a Liverpool supporter, but watches all my shows. Evening Russ, the Fulham shout on the two Fulham legends. Claire Green comes in. Evening, everyone. We got Colm on. Good evening, gang. We've got all these comments coming in. So thank you, everyone who's watching us live. This should be fun. And I look forward to it. Rob, I'll go to you. I haven't even talked to you yet. How are you doing, Rob? You look forward to doing the show and talking about last season and looking forward?
Yeah, very much so. It's always good to get on with you three guys. Yeah, it's been an interesting season. One that we probably all didn't predict truly at the beginning of last season. But yeah, joking aside, yeah, Emilio's right. 10th was, as Gordon says, 10th was great and probably all unexpected come last August. But yeah, just a little bit in the back of my mind thought, the 8-match ban and the few games that we probably could have been another 6-8 points better off. Could have been 9th, 8th, 7th. But hey, I would have took that at the beginning of the season. And I've seen 17 out of 19 away games. Wow. I've only watched 4 home games, but I've seen 17 out of 19 away. So it has been nice on the eye to watch them.
Okay. Over to you, Gordon. Just want to go back to you. Thank you again for joining us. And it's been a great season. And I look forward to getting your view of everything that happened this season. Well, of course, we'll end the second half of the show talking about next season. But just let's start with you. Give me your opening thoughts of what you watched last season.
Well, as everybody said, I think it was a surprise to everyone. I think what got us on the roll was the first result of the season against Liverpool. You couldn't really have asked for a better or a worse fixture in both sort of senses with regards to one of the best teams in Europe coming down to the Cottage, and you're hoping that we're going to get something from the game. Well, we were the better side on the day, and to say that we drew 2-2 at home with Liverpool, as Rob and Emilio have said, you could have said that's 2 points we've dropped already in the first game of the season. So the way that we started, the way that things went from day one, and also it was a shame when we signed on loan Solomon. He comes on, he shows a bit of flair in the 10-15 minutes that he was on, and then he picks up an injury in a behind doors game within a week. So we were without him for a while. As Rob has already mentioned, the 8-match ban for Mitrovic, which I'm sure we'll speak about later, was a big blow to the club. And as Rob mentioned, he was talking about maybe 6, 7, 8 points that we could have had in different games and that 8-match ban. We could actually have been pushing for the top 6, because we're only 10 points off 6th, and we lost a lot of points when Mitrovic was out, but we lost a lot of points at the end of games where we lost in the last minute. So you drop in 1, 2, 3 points all the time. So the football that we played was a joy to watch. And to be perfectly honest with you, everybody put a shift in. I'd probably say if there was one person I was a bit disappointed in, it would have been Dan James. Being a fellow Welshman, I don't think he pulled up any trees with us. I think he only scored 2 goals and 1 assist throughout the season. So we've got to replace him, and hopefully somebody like Solomon is on one side. We've probably got to get somebody for the other side. But the football that we played was, as I said, was a joy to watch. And to be perfectly honest with you, I think we're all anticipating what we can do this coming season.
So am I, Gordon. Before I go to Rob and then go back to Emilio, I want to just work on this with you, because this started from the first match of the season. Were you surprised by the style of play that they took it right to Liverpool? Again, it was different than what Fulham were doing in the Championship. Silva altered his tactics. He tweaked them for the Premier League. It's almost like he was preparing while he was in the Championship for this. Were you surprised by this? Because they played with no fear. That to me was what was so enjoyable. Home or away, it didn't matter who it was. They played with no fear, Gordon.
I think the attitude, he's always had people having a go at him, but the way that he plays is that you can leave yourself open at the back. But when you have such an attacking team, and the players that we brought in, and obviously we'll speak about different players, but Palhinha has been a godsend as a defensive midfield player. I think he's helped Tim Ream have a good season. I think he's helped Tosin or Diop have great seasons in the middle, because he's been put in that sort of front gate. He's been closing that front gate in front of them, so they haven't been exposed as much. But when you look at the amount of goals that we scored, I think we scored 55, but we've let in 53. So that is one thing that I think Silva will look at next season. Can we stop those goals going in, but can we still have that attacking ability? And I think you just sort of pick out one person who I think jaws dropped open when we signed him, being a 34, 35-year-old ex-Chelsea player, Willian, and he's been one of the stars of the season. And he's worked his socks off going forward and back. And to be perfectly clear with you, I think he would have been close to having, in my opinion, player of the season if 1 or 2 other players hadn't been absolutely spot on and probably getting 9 out of 10 week in, week out. So it's going to be interesting this season now as to who we buy and where we strengthen, because we still are weak in a few areas. But the way that we took the game to everyone, and not just at home, but when we played away from home as well, and probably Rob will go more into this.
Yep.
We just wanted to take the game to everybody, and even when you lose at the Etihad 2-1, and you think should have got something from the game,
It's crazy.
then it's all good for the future. Fingers crossed.
I totally agree, and that's going to lead me to go over to Rob, because I want to really focus on this from what Gordon was talking about, the style of play, and I want to really focus in on with you, Rob, central midfield, because I think this is what dictated everything for Fulham. It wasn't just Palhinha, it was also Pereira, then of course Harrison Reed. So I think this is where the story really takes shape, is in central midfield. Rob, I want to get your thoughts on how they were able to execute this style of play, and especially since you were a midfielder, how it all worked in central midfield.
Yeah, I mean, he obviously started the season on the front foot and really wanted to go with that front 6 that we had, whatever 3 played up front, and the 3 you just named there, Palhinha, Reed and Pereira. They were probably the backbone of that midfield for the whole season. Hence, Tom Kearney probably never got a look in other than the last 20 minutes every game for 30-odd games. But, I mean, God, Pereira, I mean, I wasn't a lover last season, but I thought he was absolutely outstanding, both with and without the ball. Palhinha is a revelation. I saw him in pre-season when we in Portugal.
I remember we talked about it.
I thought this kid looks the real deal, and hence his stats and the interest he's generating at the moment, which I'm sure we can fend off with the contract that he's got. But it also allowed Harrison to get forward a lot more, and he was the little ginger Iniesta that popped up and, final balls and got shots on target, scored a few. So yeah, them three more or less were the stalwart of the side. I agree with Gordon. William, again, I was sceptical about what we do in signing a 34-year-old, but he was absolutely immense, and he dropping a shoulder and the pace over that first 3 or 4 yards, and some of the final balls and crosses and goals he scored were just out of this world. And hence, I think that front six, when it picked itself, made us go at teams. I mean, look at all them. I mean, we talk about points lost. Arsenal, Man City, Man United, Liverpool, all late goals, we conceded, which you've had points up there. Just that's 4 that comes straight to mind. So as much as it was really good, and Gordon just alluded it, we're thinking that Polina did a great job, but we still conceded 53 goals. You know what I mean? So as much as we're saying that he's got all the best stats in the league and all that, but somewhere along the line, and we both agree or all agree that Pereira and Reed were fantastic, we still conceded 53 goals, which is still a concern for me.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned that. Before I go to Emilio and get his overall thoughts, I want to focus on the defense now, because when you look at it, Leno was just fantastic. You can argue he's Fulham's player of the season. We'll talk about player of the season in just a bit. But what did you see from the back four and also from Leno? Did Leno save Fulham so many points, Gordon? I'm sorry, Rob, or what was the reason why they were conceding so many goals in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, obviously he did make game saving saves at certain times and kept the score down in a few games where we did get beat. But yeah, I mean, just a few individual errors. I mean, I was talking to someone the other day. I thought Jedi had his best season in the last sort of 2 or 3 years. I thought he was good going forward. He improved defensively over the season. I think he got better. I mean, Tete's come in and done brilliant when he plays right back. If them two were on their game, I'm still a bit concerned in the middle. I mean, Tim, as well as Tim Dunn, he's been playing with 2 different partners at different times, Tosin or Diop. So there was no real continuity that could get going week in, week out. He'd probably play one of them for 2 or 3 games and left them out and then put him back in. So, yeah, I mean, to actually go through the season and highlight where them 53 goals came from, I'm not sure if many of them were for dead balls or general play or whatever. It'd be nice to see what the stats were in terms of them 53, to see where they did come. Was it individual errors? Did lots of teams score good goals against us? I'm not so sure there would have been a lot of good goals in that 53 that we conceded, where we really got cut open, from back to front. But it's an area, obviously, I'm sure Marco will be wanting to, as well as we've played, you've got to stop goals, and to score 55 and concede 53 is as much as it's only a slight positive, there's still an area for concern there to work on.
Well, that's good. And over to you, Emilio, because I wanted to just wrap up opening thoughts by going to you, because as an overall looking at going forward, as Gordon and Rob talked about, but we're also being honest here because we want to see Fulham progress and get better. And you have to analyze and you have to look at the good and the bad. Let's be honest. There is bad. Defensively, they need to upgrade. We'll talk about in the second half of the show, because I think that's something that Silva really needs to look at. He has to be honest, because the goalkeeper saved them a serious amount of points, and they need to feel where they need to upgrade. I think you have to look at defense. Just give me your overall thoughts, Emilio, of the season, and then let's talk about the defense.
I think many of these players, let's see where they were a couple of years ago under Scott Parker's reign. They struggled. They couldn't really fit that system. These guys have all progressed, have all matured. And I've said it all along, many of these former championship players, as I call them, I'm not being derogatory here, a lot of them punched above their weight, but that's because there's a team spirit in the club. Marco and Silva and his coaching team have instilled that confidence, that camaraderie, that team spirit. And sometimes, that brings a lot of energy and quality that you may not have seen if you're playing a more conservative system like under Scott Parker. How many goals did they score at home that season? I think it was 9 league goals at home a couple of years ago. So look, we've gone the complete opposite. And I agree with the guys, because how many times did we need to score 3 goals to win a game? That's a problem. In the games we know early on against Brentford, we managed to get a late winner, but again conceded 2, but managed to find a way to score 3. And there were many instances where we just lacked that third goal, but we can't keep conceding 2 goals and expect to win games. But overall, what Gordon and Rob said, it was a delight to watch last season. Seeing offensive football, taking the game to your opposition, no fear, and let's also talk about some of the other positives. We may have conceded 53 goals, but we had a number of clean sheets, which is not typical of Fulham in recent seasons in the Premier League. We're conceding in most games. So Leno, the defence, central midfield, we kept a number of clean sheets. That away game at Chelsea was probably the best defensive performance I can remember of a Fulham team for God knows how many seasons. So a lot of positives there. But we've got a good team spirit, but we have to push on. And we've survived. We've done it with confidence. We've got enough points on the board before Christmas, and that's why I think we've all been a little bit disappointed. We slightly regressed from about February, March, but that's maybe you can argue injuries, depth of squad. We will learn from that. Tony Khan and the board and Marcus will be looking at that as we speak at the moment, because we need to strengthen. And there's a lot of positives to talk about, but overall, remember we're a championship team. We've got promoted. Expectations, I think, were very high, more higher than they were in previous times we got promoted. So I think there was that pressure on the management. The management team and the players did phenomenal this season, and hopefully we can continue it. But we need to upgrade in key areas, and I think the key thing is keep it tighter, still find a way of playing that, attacking brand of football, because we don't want to lose that, and we won't lose that under Marco Silva. But he's got to find that balance, and that's the job he's paid to do. Unfortunately, he's got that dilemma. But overall, pleasure to watch. Home and away this season, and like I said, we should have had more points on the board, but finished 10th. Let's prepare ourselves for next year, because I think we've got a lot to look forward to.
I agree, Emilio. I agree. But before we look forward, we have to look back. And the way that I thought we would do it, and Emilio talked about it, we're going to go through each one of you, your 3 greatest moments of the season. So let's start from 3, 2, 1. And Rob, I'll go to you first. Give me your 3 greatest moments of the season.
Oh, you got to put me on the spot there.
I'm glad you're going first, Rob.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, as I alluded to earlier, I watched a lot of home games, but probably on TV. But away games were a different type of attacking team. Like Emilio said, we played at home or away. We still played the same way, which was good, because Fulham haven't done that for many, many years. So it was nice when you kicked off, whether it Everton, Arsenal, Tottenham, Man U, that you could tell from the first minute that the front 6 and the 2 fullbacks were going to really go after teams and not sit back and wait for the sucker punches. And there'd be many a game that, where we didn't get the ball for the first 10 or 15 minutes, but stayed in the game in a positive attitude in terms of, how we were playing. And we scored early in quite a number of games and scored first. And again, I don't know what the stats are compared to when we did score first. How many games did we actually lose? Because, there would have been a few over the season. But yeah, I mean, as I said, I really liked from day one. I liked the attitude at Liverpool. That was one game I did come to, and I thought, wow, if we're going to play like this season. And we were very unfortunate not to win that game. And the other game I saw at home was Manchester United, which was a travesty to lose in the last minute. That was a negative in terms of, but it was a great performance. But just, I felt so despondent for Marco and his team, because, we all know that we should have won that game, never mind getting beat in the game. And like the Liverpool game as well, where we drew the game and we know we should have won it. So they're 2 games that stand out to me, home games. Away games, I say, a lot of positivity. There's been the odd one where we didn't play as well. Tottenham, I think, was a game where we made substitutions. We brought a lad on. He played left back. He gave the ball away. They end up scoring. But most games we were always in with a chance. As I say, other than the Newcastle at home where we did get the run around, we've been there or thereabouts. So I'll do 2 out of 3. I'll say Man United and Liverpool at home were 2 real positives for me, because I was there personally watching them, and I felt there were fantastic performances, and we didn't get the full justification of points we should have done.
Okay, I'm going to share this one because I think this is a good one. This is from Costa Trip. Chelsea home, Forest away, Brighton away. Brighton away is massive. So
yeah,
I'm there as being one of them, Rob.
I was a guest at Brighton away of my mate who was sponsoring the game, and I was in the VIP lounge with Alan Mullery and Bobby Zamora. They were Brighton. They interviewed me before the game and asked me what was I expecting. And I said, well, I'll be happy with a point. And then obviously after the game, they got me back up again, which was 350 people, sort of like when I said, well, we just got away with daylight robbery here in the last minute. I felt embarrassed to be talking.
Okay, very good. Okay, Emilio, I'm going to go to you. I'll give Gordon a chance to think of history. I'm going to go to you.
Sure. Yeah, I had Brighton away. You know, that was one of the other positives this season. How many times, 2 or 3 years ago, against stronger opposition, we get, how many games of this season would have been annihilated? Like the fact that we lost by the odd goal in most games shows how far we've progressed this season. So we're disappointed we've lost away to Man City rather than getting annihilated. That's how far we've come. But Brighton away proves that we can not be in the game, be absolutely destroyed through it for 89 minutes and get a sucker punch. That's progress for me. The fact that we can still keep that clean sheet right to the death and score, like Rob said, a sucker punch. So that's one of the games for me. I think both Chelsea games, I think I'm sort of slightly cheating, but Chelsea obviously beating Chelsea at home for the first time in about 16, 17 years. And Vinicius scoring that goal, very happy for him. And the fact that we actually, disappointed, we could have won that game by more, to be honest. We hung on a little bit towards the end, but we had enough chances to beat them by a further margin. And then I'm going to use obviously the Chelsea away game when I was, the fact that you've had a tremendous, defensive performance that day. But there were moments when I believed when we were attacking, I don't know if you were there, Rob, but we almost had a chance. I believe that we can actually go and win at Stamford Bridge. That's unheard of. Our record against Chelsea is appalling, but the fact we can go to Stamford Bridge and have belief that with a good attacking option, set pieces, we can go and nick a winner here. So, I did a show straight after, I remember, Russ, outside Stamford Bridge, and remembered clearly that, disappointed that we actually almost could have won 3 points. And the other one for me is the Brentford game at home. It's more about the incident, the Ivan Toney celebrating midway. That really pissed me off, to be honest with you. But who got the last laugh? Who got the last laugh? It was our own Mitrovic. So it's a Ivan Toney. Stick your 9-month ban up your, where it belongs, and we'll see you next season. That for me was one of the fun moments of the season. But the fact that there was a bit of rivalry on the pitch by 2 informed strikers right at the beginning of the season, and that set the tone, I think, for the season.
Okay, I'm going to share this from Colm before I go over to Gordon. Mitrovic winning goal against Brentford, Vinicius against Chelsea, Harrison Reed away to Forest. That's actually a really good one. I like that. Very good. Second mention of the Nottingham Forest match. Okay, Gordon, I want to give you plenty of time here. 3 greatest moments of the season for you.
I think the first one was the first game of the season at home to Liverpool, and also because of the way Mitrovic played and the far post header that he scored that day, because we've spoken time and time that everybody knows he can do it in the Championship. It has always been the question mark against him in the Premier League. But as we said, over the last sort of 2 seasons, whenever he's played in the Premier League, he's always been in a team that's been fighting relegation. So therefore, he's not going to have that many chances. He's not going to score that many goals. So I was pleased for him that he got off the score sheet or onto the score sheet as early as he did in the first game of the season. And as we've already mentioned, that's a game that we should have won. And to be disappointed in the first game of the season against one of the best teams in Europe that people talk about, it gave us hope, I think, for the rest of the season and the way that we were going to play. Although Emilio mentioned the Chelsea away game, and yes, we have got a poor record, because unfortunately, the last time we beat them at Stamford Bridge, yours truly was playing in that game, and that's 1978. So that's one of the records that needs to be sorted out quickly. Not because I played in that game, but because it's a situation that the supporters who go there and give their all haven't seen us win at Stamford Bridge, and we're due a win. And it was on the cards that night, to be perfectly honest with you. And I think we missed coming away from that game, as we're talking about points again, with a couple of extra points on the day. So although I'm not putting that in my top 3, but the Liverpool game, I'd certainly go with the Brentford game at home. And because I think that is probably taking over as the big rivalry rather than us and Chelsea at the moment, because Chelsea in the bottom half of the table, so they've got to sort something out for next season anyway. So that's one thing that I can say. So definitely the Brentford game, and yes, I won't use the same phrase as Emilio, But yeah, it's a bit annoying when somebody's taking off Mitrovic and saying, "Oh, I've scored, son. What can you do?" Well, he proved it later on. So yeah, that puts a smile on everybody's face. And probably the third game, I want to say the Brighton one.
Okay.
Because of the fantastic goal that we scored. It was 2 passes and two touches by Solomon. The first touch was putting it 15 yards in front of him so he can run onto it, and the second was the shot, and we scored. And as Emilio said, we've been on the receiving end of those so many times in recent seasons, and it's nice to go away, nick a point, and as Rob said, he was embarrassed. If we were playing in games like that, we wouldn't have been embarrassed. We would have taken the pat on the back and said, "Thanks very much. See you next year." But yeah, when you're talking about it, and you've probably had one shot in the entire game, but it's happened to us. So you look at the Brighton, but I'm going to go off the wall with this third one, and it's the FA Cup game away at Old Trafford, because I thought we were fantastic on the day. I thought we were the better team on the day. We were
totally agree, Gordon. Totally
agree. Man United weren't, and I don't know what the situation with Mitrovic was, but I think we still, if he'd have just held his head, I think we could have still won that game with 10 men rather than 11, and got through to the semi-final. And you never know what might have happened. But I know it's the way that we played on that day, going to Old Trafford late in the season, still on the front foot, and really, again, showing a club that's dominated Europe in the past, that we can compete with them. And I thought we were fantastic on the day, and very, very unfortunate.
Okay. Before we move on to player of the season, I want to go back to and just talk to you. We're talking about Vitro. I want to get your thoughts on Carlos Vinicius. What are your thoughts about him as a player, Gordon?
At the moment, I still think he's yards off the pace in the Premier League. He for a lad who's over 6, I think he's 6'3" or 6'4". He's a similar size to Mitrovic, but a completely different player. He doesn't hold the ball up for a big man. He doesn't sort of. All he does, he tries to back into the centre half and back in, and all the centre half does sometimes is push him to one side, get his foot in front of him, and knock the ball away, and it's picked up, and we lose possession. And for somebody with, should I say, his experience,
yep.
I think they if we do keep him, he's got to work on perhaps pushing back into the centre half and then coming off 2 or 3 yards. So it's easier for him to control it, because he gives the ball away so many times when it's played up to him, that what ends up, and probably Rob has had this with forwards, and he'd probably say with me as well. He comes to support me, I keep giving it away. So he doesn't, and then he's got to turn and run 20 yards back. So in the end, Rob stops coming up to me to get the ball, drops off, and then when I do get it under control, I've got 2 or 3 defenders around me, a defensive midfield player, I give it away. So I'm having to go at Rob, where are you? And Rob's been having to go at me, saying, well, you've given the ball away for the last 10 times, so I'm not coming to support you. So it's a chicken and the egg situation. Yeah. But if he comes, he's got pace, so if he comes short 3 or 4 yards, spins and goes in behind the defender, then it gives a defender something to think about. And it's not always in front of him, right? Because you can defend anybody that's in front of you for 90 minutes. But when you come in short, coming in front, or you're coming short and then spinning behind, that puts a doubt in the player's mind. But they've got to work with him if he's going to stay, because he's not an ideal replacement for Mitrovic. He's come in. I think he's certainly lacking in 2 or 3 areas for a front man. And if he's going to be up there by himself, he's got to learn to hang on to that ball and bring everybody into the game. Otherwise, he's going to be on his bike, I'm afraid.
Okay. I'm glad that we talked a little bit about Vinicius. I've been curious your thoughts on it, Gordon. So thank you for sharing that. Let's end our discussion of the season with player of the season. Let's go around the room. I'll go to you first, Emilio. Who's your player of the season?
Well, this was a tough one, to be honest with you. You know, I had number 3. I put Tim Ream just because of his captain credentials and the fact, you know, clean sheets, and he was a leader on that pitch all season. Despite, I know he had Palhinha protecting him, like what Gordon was saying earlier, but overall I thought his leadership credentials were critical last season. You just see him on the pitch talking to his players, whispering, that's important. I think he's a captain, that we need, and hopefully he'll be better fit. But he's not invincible. He's what, 35 now, so we've got to think about what next there. But I gave him number 3 because he was a leader on and off the pitch, and that's the type of player we need in the dressing room. I gave Palhinha number 2. I gave Leno my player of the season, purely on the basis he played the most games. He saved us at least 10 points. Someone mentioned earlier on in the comments, we conceded 53, but without Leno it would have been more likely 60 plus. So I thought, and the fact that Palhinha picked up a lot of yellow cards, I slightly downgraded him for that. When he was on the pitch, immense, and battled and saved and worked hard and scored, and obviously he's got goals in the tank. But in terms of contribution, overall consistency, how many bad games did Bernd Leno have all season? I don't think he had a bad game as far as I'm concerned. So for me, it was very close, but I gave it to Leno on the basis he's probably saved us a good 10 points this season.
Okay. Over to you, Gordon. Give me your player of the season. If you want to give 3 leading up to your player of the season, feel free to.
To be perfectly honest with you, I'll agree totally with what Emilio said about Ream. And at the beginning of the season, I think we were all concerned about how he was going to play. He had a good World Cup, and I think he went on from there. But I think at the end of the season, we were always thinking, right, who's going to come in to replace Ream? He can't do another season at this level after the previous Premier League sort of season. And I held my hands up when I was in hospitality and said, I got it wrong. I said, he's proved me wrong. He's come in and he's absolutely had a fantastic year at the back. He's hardly put a foot wrong. So I would put him as number 2 in my top 3. And it's a close one between Willian and Reid for being in 3rd position, because as we've mentioned, Reid's a license to go forward. We've seen a different Reid this year, as Rob mentioned, the Ginger Iniesta. I thought he was going to say the Ginger Lewington, but Rob, perhaps Lou never got that far forward. If he did, he definitely got back. So it's close between Willian and Reid for 3rd spot, but I'm going for Palhinha because I think without him, I honestly think, and I know, yes, he's in a position, he's going to pick up cards, he's going to miss a few games, but I honestly think that he's been the rock in the centre of the pitch defensively, and he's also come up with a couple of crucial, fantastic goals at the other end as well. So Palhinha for me wins it purely because of the fact that I think without him in the team, we're not the same team, and we're not as not defensively organised, but we're not as good without him being on the pitch.
Totally agree. That's why he's my player of the season. It's Palhinha. Fulham were not the same team without him. They could not function without him, and that to me is why he's my player of the season. But some very good players of the season and other players as well who were 2nd and 3rd. Over to you, Rob. I want to get your player of the season, but the one thing that before we do that, because I want to talk a little bit about Reid and Palhinha, because I think that both of them feed off of each other. I think Palhinha is my player of the season, but I actually think Palhinha needs Reid a little bit. Reid, I think, needs Palhinha. I think they work well together. I think when you take one out, it's not the same. Am I wrong to bring that up?
No, definitely. And I'll do it the other way around. I'll go number 1. My player of the season, definitely Palhinha. As I said, I take away the bookings, which he's picked up 13, 14. The 3 games he was suspended, we lost all of them. And yeah, as much as we've conceded goals, he's still been a revelation in there. Hence, we've got multi-million-pound clubs after him, his services. But yeah, he's been fantastic on and off the ball. If you watch him live, his positional play as a defensive midfield player is second to none. It reminds me of Patrick Vieira or someone like that, where his starting position always gets him one step ahead of someone. And as I said, he's been that sort of insurance in front of Ream and Tosin or Ream and Diop in there. To stop them, that their balls going into their number 10 or their number 8. If I was to go 2nd and 3rd, I agree with you, Russ. I think Reed's been fantastic. He looks a different player with Polina alongside him, and I think he'll go on next season. I think he will blossom again. I think he's a type of bloke that, you know, just thrives on sort of tenacious tackling and good keeping the ball retention. You know, if you look at his stats, they've improved this year compared to last season. For third, it would have been a toss-up between a keeper Leno, but I'm going to go for the old man, William. I mean, I thought, he can still be playing at 34, 35 and changing games. You know, he's a game changer with a drop of the shoulder or the finesse he's got in terms of a cross or picking a pass or the goals he scored. Yes, we needed Leno for many, many, many games, but I say it'd just be out of my top three. So yeah, I would go that for Polina, Reed, and Will.i.am. I call him Will.i.am.
Can I just say one thing with regards
Go
to
ahead,
Emilio,
Gordon.
to Emilio putting Leno, because I've just seen something that came at the bottom of the season. Somebody else has said Leno, player of the season for sure. This is what I mean about the negativity. We finished 10th in the league, and yet the goalkeeper is the player of the season. If we'd have finished 17th, fine. But I can't see how he's put him as player of the season.
Okay, very good. Guys, before we move on and we talk about what's next for Fulham, this does go to what's next, but I want to get your thoughts on penalties, taking penalties. Gordon, I have to go to you first. I want your thoughts about the Mitro situation with taking penalties. I know I'm putting you on the spot, but what are your thoughts about this?
If we had, Mitro is a big personality within the team. He's sort of the leader of the team, and I think if he turns around to whoever has got the ball when a penalty is given, and he said, "I'm taking it," they will just give it to him. We had I'm trying to think of the player that a few seasons ago we had the argument with Mitro and another player taking the ball off him and wanting to take the penalty, and
Kamara.
Yeah. So it's a situation that unless we find that a player we sign or somebody in the team, I'll just pick out say Pereira, is a better penalty taker than Mitro, then it should change, and it should have changed probably 4 or 5 penalties ago, because at this level, at Premier League level, you've got to be putting perhaps 8 or 9 out of 10, if not 10 out of 10, in the back of the net. And although Mitro has changed his style a bit, I don't think he is a natural penalty taker. And I think you do get those people who are just confident and they can do it whatsoever, whichever side, down the middle. And Rob knows what I'm probably going to say next. The best one that we've ever played with was Kevin Locke. And he was just so cool and calculated, but I'm not sure that Mitrovic is. And if we had a penalty taker in the team, then again, you go back to what we were all talking about earlier. How many points would we have had if he hadn't missed the 4 or the 5 out of the 10 that he's taken? And then you go back to a game that I mentioned, the quarterfinal against Man United. The penalty could have put us 2 up. And that's a completely different complete psyche, not only for Man United, but for the Fulham team to go 2-0 up away from home in a quarterfinal game. They're game changing. And I honestly think that if he is taking them at the beginning of next season, if he misses one, somebody else has got to step up. And he's got to be big about it as well and say, I'm stepping away. We need somebody else to take the penalties. But he's a big character and he's a confident character. And I don't think it matters to him if he misses 2 or 3 or 4 on the trot. He'll expect to get the next one. And I think we've got to get away from that. We've got to be looking at percentages, and 8, 9 or 10 out of 10 is what we should be looking at.
I totally agree. Over to you, Rob. And it's funny because when I think of taking penalties and always felt that he was going to score, I go to Danny Murphy. I always felt that Fulham were going to score on a penalty. I don't feel like that with Mitro. So it's an interesting situation that they have, because you have someone like Mitro, a huge character. How do you tell him he can't take it? How do you move on from him? But the percentages, as Gordon says, at some point you have to think about the number of penalties that have been missed, Gordon. Rob, sorry. So your thoughts?
Yeah, not only this season. You look at his record overall over the last 3 or 4 seasons. It's poor. He's got to be big enough, and the manager's got to be big enough to say to him, I'm taking you off him. And we got Pereira, you got William. I mean, they're cool customers. You look at Ivan Toney, how he takes a penalty. I don't get that when Mitro steps up. He scores a great one the week before last against Man United, against, who was it? Put it in the top bin. And then we're all thinking of Man United, what's he going to do? He looked nervous when he was taking it. And then it's a poor penalty, and Gordon said, that cost us a game. We go 2-0 up then. That's game over, and we would be heading to the semi-final, guaranteed.
Okay.
But, I think it comes from Marco. Whether he says to him, okay, if you're playing well and you feel confident, you can take it. But like I say, if he misses 1 or 2 on the spot, I don't give him 3 or 4. He doesn't take. If he misses 1 or 2, second one, next game, you tell him before the game, if we get a penalty today, you're not taking him, Mitro. It's Pereira or hands up who wants to take it. And then leave it at that. He's got to think of the team and not the goal stats that he's the number 9 and he's going to take it every game, and to score 4 out of 8 or whatever he's done this season, 50% is not good enough.
No, definitely not. Emilio, I'll give you a final word on this.
Yeah, I think there's not much else to say there. But I think if you look back, the first one against Wolves away, I think score that late penalty, game over, you come away with 3 points. So you argue that's another 2 points we've dropped. But that's early in the season. He was on a high. He's a natural. He was always going to be our number 1 penalty taker. You look back the Newcastle one. It's just bad luck, right? I can't really get caught in for that. It's just one of those things, But I thought when he came back from the suspension, had Pereira been fit, would he have naturally given it to Pereira, that Crystal Palace penalty, and then obviously at Old Trafford the last game of the season. So the fact he didn't have Pereira there as an option or his fallback. Maybe did he feel he had no choice but to take? I'm defending him here somewhat, but clearly, who would have taken it? With Pereira injured, it would have been probably William as a third choice, or probably Tom Kearney. And then he's also missed a few penalties in his time at Fulham. So to be honest, we've got to sort this issue out. And I agree. I think Mitrovic has had enough chance. 50% success rate, not good enough. Harry Kane's clinical penalties. Dare I say it, Bruno Fernandes, who we all hate, confident at penalties. Ivan Toney. He's going to score 19 to 100% of the penalties. So that will be something we'll be addressing. But who is that natural number 2? The only one I can think of really is Pereira from our
I'm thinking of Pereira, Emilio.
From our squad of play, from our current starting 11. Who else would take it?
Maybe William?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not sure about William.
Maybe Leno. Goalkeepers strike the ball so well. We only need Leno to be in the box, and then everybody else can be back in our box defending in case he misses it.
Oh, boy.
Just something food for thought, though. That's the thing.
Yeah, it is.
Who makes the decision? Is it Mitrovic to have the ball to say, look, I've done my best. I hand over some, or does he get stripped from that role by the manager? This is what Gordon, if you're in this position, what would you, what would you do if Mitrovic is resisting the need to hand over?
It's a situation that I've had in hospitality. I've had Les Strong say virtually every week if there's a penalty. That I would say take Mitrovic off the penalties because he's getting closer to my record. So from my point of view, I'd take him off the penalties. I would sell him in the summer and get rid of him. But no, I think it's got to be down to the manager, as Rob said. Yep. The manager's got to be pragmatic about it, and he's got to put a line down to say to Mitrovic, right, you're taking the first one of the season. If you score, you can take the next one. But if you miss 2 on the trot, you're off the penalties.
Right.
So if he takes 3 and he's got 2 out of 3, then fine. But if he misses the 4th one, he's back to a 50% ratio. So take him off the penalties. But at the moment, I can't see, unless we buy someone and they're doing it in training, I can't see Mitrovic being taken off the penalties at the start of the season unless we buy somebody who says, well, I've taken them, I've never missed one.
Okay. Well, good stuff. Great way to end talking about the season, because again, that would be a factor for next season. But coming up next, we're going to focus on what is next for Fulham. Okay, guys, let's get going. And one of the things I'm going to be asking all 3 of you is your 3 priorities for Fulham for this upcoming season. But before we do that, I'm going to take one off the table because I think this is the biggest topic we should be talking about before we talk about 3 priorities for Fulham, because I think this is the number one situation that needs handling. And Emilio, I'll go to you first and then I'll go to the guys. I want to talk about Marco's contract. I think this is the number one thing hanging over the head of Fulham Football Club right now. He is going into the last year of his deal. At this point, he has not signed a new contract. What are your thoughts about this situation with Marco, and how important is it to sign him to a new deal as soon as possible?
Absolutely crucial. I'm surprised we haven't done it already by now at the end of the day, because we know what Marco's position. Like, he could be a hot-blooded Mediterranean person at the end of the day. You know, he's pulling the strings. Let's be honest with you. He's had 2 very successful seasons for the club. You know, he pulls the strings now. It's not about what Tony Khan wants. It's what Marco Silva wants, and we've got to, you know, negotiate with him. This is the bottom line. It comes to business here at the end of the day. But Marco Silva, you know, isn't one to hang around. If he gets messed around or hasn't seen a transfer kitty that's sizable and significant enough to push on, then, you know, don't be surprised he will continue to do what Fabio Carvalho did 2 seasons ago and resist the need to sign an extension. But you're right. Without Marco signing the contract, we're going to be a bit in limbo. I know we've still got 12 months to focus. He's still got a job to do. But ultimately, if he's not going to get the transfer kitty, you're going to see Marco probably resisting to sign that contract, because he'll have plenty of other offers on the table from other clubs. You know, look at all these other clubs in the Premier League have all pushed on, had their managers replaced. You know, a lot of Marco Silva was in contention for many of those roles, including the Tottenham manager. I think he was linked with the Tottenham manager's role a month or so ago. So I agree with Chris. Give him a long-term contract. You know, put your money where your mouth is, Tony Khan, and get that deal signed up immediately and give him what he wants. Because ultimately, we've seen what he can do. You know, successful season in the Championship, record goal scores. You know, Premier League 10th place, could have been higher. So give him what he bloody wants. Excuse my French. You know, why are you waiting, Tony Khan? I think that's what fans are struggling to understand. Why aren't we making a decision? Why are we leaving everything so lastminute.com? And before we know it, other clubs can still come and snatch him away from us. That's my nagging doubt. You know, fixtures are out, in 2 days' time, 3 days' time.
That's right.
So, you know, everyone's going to be thinking about next season, first game of the season, and first, second week of August. You know, we want to make sure we've got a transfer kitty, significant funds, players identified. Marco Silva's had a voice in those transfers. Get him to sign that contract, buy the players early, bed them in, you know, pre-season before we get to the first game of the season. Then we'll have another successful season next year. But without him at the helm, then you're right. Claire's right. If Marco goes or doesn't sign, why would Pellegrini want to stay? These are all the things, the repercussions that can happen. It just creates a little bit of instability in the team and a bit of uncertainty. So for me, get it sorted at the top, hand him over that treasure chest of money, and then build for the foundations for next season.
See, I totally agree with you, Emilio, and I'm going to go to you, Rob, because I think, like I said, I want to talk about priorities, meaning upgrading the club. But the thing about it is, until this situation, I think, is resolved one way or another, we know what's going on with Marco. I think this is just hanging over the head of potential players coming to Fulham, Rob. Yeah. I think they need to get this taken care of. They also, I agree with the sentiment from Chris Goodwin, they need to basically show Marco the money, not just financially for himself, but that they're going to invest and upgrade the club. So I think there's a lot going on here, but until they get his contract situation sorted out, this is just hanging over Fulham's head.
Yeah, definitely. And I presume the contract side of it, I don't think that'll be the issue. I think it'll be the transfer budget.
That's what I think.
Mr. Khan's probably giving him, because, you know, I mean, he was touted around for the Tottenham job, the Chelsea job. And if he has got a £6 million clause in there, you know, that would have been, he could well have been gone by now, because if Tottenham or Chelsea really wanted him, if they thought he was his number one, I think they would have just, you know, released the 6 million and paid that and got him. So, yeah, I think he's probably, I'd imagine the talks have been ongoing with him about personal money and length of contract. But I think Marco's very, you know, he's very brash, and he would want the transfer budget and the players that he wants more important than his own personal contract. So if that's not forthcoming at the moment, then as we go into the start of transfer deadline soon, then that's hanging over everyone's head. And like you say, players are unsure whether to come in because the manager's going into the last year of his contract come 1st of August. So, why would you sign a 5-year deal for someone if you didn't know he were going to be there the following season? So, yeah, I'm hoping there's an announcement made in the coming weeks. Obviously, they're all on their holidays. So, there may be something behind the scenes that's already done and they're waiting for the right time to make the announcement. But I think they should be making it sooner rather than later, just so all these alleged players that we may be going after or possibly going after, that, they come to fruition when we start putting money on the table.
See, that's my point, Rob. I'm glad that you mentioned that. And over to you, Gordon, because, both you and Rob as players, I'm sure who the manager is was a factor of who you would play for most players. And if you have a manager and you're thinking about going to Fulham and you're not sure if he's going to be there, you might have second thoughts about going to Fulham. So I think it all starts with getting a new deal done with Marco, but they also have to show Marco that they're going to back him, and it works hand in hand. If he signs a new deal, Gordon, I think that shows us also that they're going to invest in this club, because I don't think Marco stays unless they're going to invest in Fulham Football Club. Gordon, your thoughts?
I think you're dead right, all three of you. But what you just said, Russ, I think you're dead right. It's probably, after the season that we've just had, it's probably the most important signature of pre-season, which is getting Marco to sign a new contract, because if he signed a new contract, then he's got the money that he wanted to go out after the players that he wants to try to get in, because you can't, after the 2 seasons that we've had, you can't let the opportunity go to basically kick everyone in the backside and have the guts ripped out of Fulham by the manager walking away. And as Rob and Emilio alluded to it, players then saying, well, I'm in the last year of my contract. I don't know who's going to come in. I'm just going to stay on the last year of my contract. Other players that we're supposedly interested in, and there are going to be hundreds touted about over different medias throughout the day and night, that they all want to come to Fulham because of Marco Silva. And that, a lot of it will be just agents trying to move their players around. But Marco, yes, being sort of the Latin type of personality, if you upset him, then he could down tools, and within 24 hours we've lost him.
You're right.
Because as Rob mentioned, if it's a £6 million clause, that is nothing to the big, if I say top 8 clubs in this country, as well as top clubs around Europe. So it's a pittance, really, that clause, if it is 6 million in the game as it is these days. So I think yes, the phrase has been used. The first announcement that everybody wants to hear is Marco signed a new contract, and then we know that he's been given, if I use the phrase, a war chest, because I think we I could be wrong, but I think we got £98 million for finishing 10th. Now, yes, you've got to take players' wages into account, but we could buy 4 £25 million players. Now, there's a lot of mention about certain people in the Championship that we could get for 20 million, that would make us a better team, a better squad, and probably better all round. So, yeah, even with the money that we've just got from the Premier League, we could go out and buy 4 players that are going to make us a much better squad, a much better team. So get Marco sorted. So first, get that out in the press, and then everybody knows where we stand. We are aiming to go forward, not backwards.
Absolutely, Gordon. And that's going to lead us to talk about our 3 priorities. But before we do that, I do want to focus a little bit on Paulinho, just a little bit on Paulinho before we go to 3 priorities, because I want to get all 3 of you. Let's just focus on him because he's the one that everyone is coveting. So I want to talk a little bit about him, because for me, I've been hearing the numbers being bandied around, 50, 60, 70. For me, he's even more valuable than that, because I don't think they have a suitable replacement for what he offers Fulham Football Club. I think he's that valuable. So for me, if you sell João Palhinha, unless he is forcing a move, you don't sell João Palhinha. You don't do it.
No.
Because, Gordon, I'll go right back to you. They need to be building, not replacing. If you're going to sell him, then you're in the game of replacing. They need to be building. And it starts with keeping your key players. They need to keep their core together. I did a podcast about it. I want to just talk a little bit about Palhinha and keeping the core together, and then we'll talk about 3 priorities. I want to get your thoughts.
I think, yeah, as we've mentioned, he's been probably one of our best signings over the last few years because he's gelled the whole team and the way that we play together. And he came because of Marco Silva. I think he will stay because of Marco Silva. And even if he goes at the end of next season, it gives us time. And we may be going down the Wolves route of signing a lot of Portuguese players or Brazilian players who speak Portuguese. So that's not a problem from my point of view. But you've got to, as you said, you've got to build the team around a core, even if you say coming down the middle of the pitch. Right. The keeper, Leno, has been fantastic. Then even if you pick one of the 3 centre-halves, where we'll stick with Ream, he's been fantastic. Palhinha has been fantastic. Mitrovic has been fantastic. So you've got to build a team around those sort of 4 players that you know are going to be there week in, week out. But if you sell Palhinha, even if you bring another player in of a similar quality, does he actually fit into the team, and does he play as well with teammates around him? So it's a big one for me, but I think because Marco seems happy at the club, and I know they were talking to him literally 2 days after the final game of the season. Yeah. If he stays, then Palhinha stays, and then you start building a team around the core that we've got, and you move forward. You can't stay still in the Premier League because top 10, we have got to be looking for a top 10 next year, a top 8, even a top 6. But we've got to get quality players in. And unless you've got the manager and your core players there, you're not going to get the quality players wanting to come to Fulham Football Club.
And that's my point, Gordon. That's why I wanted to focus on this before we talk about the 3 priorities of what positions we need to be basically upgrading. But over to you, Rob. This is, to me, is where it really begins. And we're seeing all the speculation. Yes, it's speculation. But I think it's about keeping the core. I'm glad that Gordon was harping on that as well. I know I'm focusing on Palhinha, but it goes beyond Palhinha. It's Mitrovic. It's Leno. It's the central midfield. It's keeping that middle just intact and building on it. Because if you get rid of Palhinha, then you are not building, my friend. You are replacing. That's what I keep going back to. We need to be building. Rob, your thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. You can't sell him. He's got 4 years left on his contract. So all of these at Villa and West Ham, he's going to replace Rice, and he's going to be 40, 50, 60, 70 million. Even at that price, he'd be worth 100 million in another 2 years' time. He's that good, you know what I mean? In terms of his stats, if he adds a little bit more to his game in terms of, he's very safe with his passing, which is great, which is fine. His real job is defensive midfield player. But as I say, I think it all stems around the relationship he's got with Marco. And if he sees that Marco signs a new 3 or 4 year deal in the next couple of weeks, his head won't be turned whatsoever. They might actually rip that 4 year contract up and give him a new 5 year one and double his wages, because he probably came in as a £20 million signing on lower wages. And after having the season he had, he'll want to get up to the wage that some of the others are on. You know what I mean? If I were him, that's what I'd be sort of saying to the agent, let's just talk to Fulham about ripping this up and give me an extra year. I'll sign a new deal, but I want double my money and I'm happy to stay here. But it all stems around the relationship he's got with Silva. And I think that's key to, that is going to be our best signing ever if we get him signed up in the next few weeks.
I totally agree. Over to you, Emilio. I'm glad that Rob went to talk about the contract and everything. I totally agree with all that. What are your thoughts about keeping the core together?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, we don't want to be, Brighton have got a habit of, they say using them as an example. They end up selling their core assets, but somehow
they do.
to replace them. To your point, they're selling and replacing, but they're replacing successfully. But that may come to hurt them at some point. They can't sustain that.
Look at Southampton. I'm just using them as an example. They did it for a long time, but eventually it comes back to hurt you.
Price for it. So for me, but I look at Declan Rice. What's a big fuss about him? I know I don't watch West Ham every week, but all the stats that we see from last season, Paulinho, it was better stats across it all, from passing, tackles won, etc., etc., etc. Why is Declan Rice worth supposedly 100 million plus? Maybe because he's English, and that's probably the reason why. But why is there such a big fuss? Every time I've seen him play for England, I haven't been overwhelmed. To be honest with you, he's safe, he's steady, but I don't see him being spectacular. I don't know what the big fuss is about Declan Rice, but clearly he's not going to stay at West Ham. But we've got to make sure why would Paddy want to go to West Ham, to Aston Villa? No disrespect. If he's that good, if someone like a Liverpool, Man United come in, maybe it's a different story as a player. But why would he want? Just because they've got European football next season, I don't think that's a big enough reason for him to want to stay at the club. But I think as Rob was saying, if Marco Silva doesn't sign on the dotted line, Paddy's head will turn, and that's a danger. And West Ham, if they keep, or whoever's coming in for him, will keep knocking on the door till our patient runs out. And there might be an offer too good to turn down. Brighton have done that with all their players, 50, 60 million players they keep selling. Yes, they find an alternative, a replacement, but how strong is Tony Khan and the board to resist temptation? He's put that tweet out there to talkSPORT to say, no, there is no release clause. So that's a statement of intent. Back off. He's not available. So then I'm glad he's done that, because in the past, Tony's been criticised for maybe getting too involved and a little bit too vocal on Twitter, but he said a few words and said the right words and told talkSPORT just to back off and just. It's good, really, at the end of the day. So
that was great, though. That was great. I like
to see that. I like to see less is more sometimes. So I think he's learned his mistakes from social media in the last few seasons, but he's critical. Keep them two at the helm, but. Yep. God forbid Marco goes, Paulinho goes, then what? So board, sort those two players out, tie Paulinho to an improved contract. I'm assuming there might be some sort of clause in there again. Then maybe there'll be a review. If we didn't get relegated, then presumably there might be some salary reviews in there. But clearly he's done so well this season. Don't be surprised if you want to retain him. You've probably got to pay up for it as well from our side. There's probably some sort of probably an increase in salary. But overall, they are paramount. The foundation of that team we can't break. We can't do what Brighton have done because we haven't got a good track record of doing that over the past, have we, guys? So I think that's the thing.
Right, Russ, could I say one thing? We've been an hour and 2 minutes into this conversation, and there's only one person that's used the word relegated.
Oh, that would be Emilio. Well. Thank you, Gordon. Thank you very much for bringing it back.
I didn't say relegated. That's in trouble. I didn't say relegated. I haven't used the relegated word.
Okay. Can we just keep that word out of the podcast for tonight? Just for one day. Just for one day. Okay, guys, let's get to really breaking this down, because let's just assume. I know it's hard to just assume because we know what happens when you assume. Let's assume they keep their core players. They keep Marco. 3 priorities for next season. Rob, I'll give you first crack at it. Where are you going? I'm putting you in the shoes of. I'm going to put you in the shoes of Tony Khan. What are you going to do? What are going to be?
I'm going to buy 2. I'm going to buy 2 quality centre halves, and I'm going to buy a better striker to be back up for Mitro. I'd get rid of Vinicius, Muniz, and I'd go for 2 ball play or 1 good centre half who's aggressive and a ball playing centre half, because I don't think Ream's going to have another season like he's had in the last 12, 18 months. I'm sure the rumours of Tosin might be looking to leave the club to take advantage of going into the last year of his contract, and I don't think Diop's good enough anyway. So I would go for 2 quality centre halves and a backup striker that's not going to push Mitro, but when we do lose him through injury or suspension or a game changer coming on for the last 20 minutes, like Tom's done all season. Tom got 5 man of the matches this year. And
I was going to say, Tom's been great. He
started 5 games.
Yeah.
So, you need a player like that, and you need a striker like that. When Vinicius or last season Muniz, Dan James, we haven't got a game changer to come off the bench and win us a game or get us a draw. and it's been too lacklustre in that in depth. So definite better number 9 to come on and do some kind of goal damage, and definitely 2 centre halves. So an aggressive centre half who will attack the ball. Not that I'm saying that they're not the 3 that haven't done that sort of regular this season. And then a nice ball playing centre half that comes out and joins in. I'm not looking for a John Stones, but someone who wants to play that type of, if he's allowed to, if Marco allows them to step in and make an extra person in there, then that's the 3 areas, or the 2 areas, 2 centre halves and striker I would go for.
Let me ask you, because we are talking about the defense, thoughts on Jedi. We talked a little bit about him. Are you happy with him as your left back?
I think he had his best season this season. I think if you look at, he played against some decent wingers up against him this season, and he wasn't found as much wanting as he has been in the past in the Championship and the previous year in Premiership. So, yeah, I think he's improved. I mean, he's still got areas to improve on. His goal assist is appalling for the amount of times he gets in. And if you watched him warm up before a game, you'd think to yourself, they must do it 5 days a week. When you look at Tete, his assist compared to look what Trippier does for Newcastle. And I know he's not Trippier, but that a right back or a left back can be just like a right or left winger and make crosses for strikers, because you look at the assist that Trippier's done, and look at, Trent Arnold last season and Robinson. So, it's there. Your fullbacks can be a good outlet going forward. And I think he obviously needs to improve on that. But no, I'm quite happy. We might need a left back as a number 2, because obviously Joe's gone. Kerwazen's not good enough. Whether he's still at the club or not, I don't know. But yeah, we probably need a backup left back, definitely.
Okay, excellent. Over to you, Gordon. What are your top 3 priorities for Fulham next season?
Definitely 1 centre half. I won't go as defensive as Rob, but I'll certainly say 1 centre half, because I'll agree. Again, you've got to look at how will Tim Ream do this year. Tosin and Diop, I think, are very similar in that you always worry when they're in possession of the ball, and 2, when they're sort of distributing the ball, because it's a situation that they allow players to turn and run at them, and both of them are fairly quick, but the amount of times that they give a ball away and then it's one-on-one, they certainly need to improve as individuals in the Premier League. If they're going to, because there's going to be some point where the 2 of them are going to play together, as Rob said, unless Tosin goes away to another club. So certainly a centre half that can come in and play in that back 4, and is more defensively minded, not necessarily coming forward, but doesn't give the ball away as much, because the distribution, I think, of Tosin and Diop is poor for Premier League centre halves. So 1 centre half. I'd certainly go for an attacking, if you want to call it, number 10 to push Pereira, because I don't think we've got anybody that, if he's missing, that we can automatically put in that position to get up and go past Mitrovic, or get up to help him, as Carvalho did before he went to Liverpool.
Okay, I'm going there. Would you bring Fabio back? I'm going there. You set me up. Would you bring Fabio back?
It all depends. He'd be accepted back by the players. I think he'd be accepted back by the club and the supporters. Whether he is mentally right to come back, I don't know. Still being a young kid, and going to one of the best teams in Europe, and thinking I've made it, and then being put on the side, coming in for 5, 6. I think he's only played 8 games this season, and a lot of those have been coming on as sub. So I think he'd be accepted back in. He knows how the team plays. Would I bring him back if we can afford his wages and we can get him on a season-long loan? Then probably. And then the third one, Rob's already mentioned it. We've got to get another, to use the expression, another number 9 in. And I think to push Mitrovic, because he knows he's going to be playing week in, week out unless he's injured. And I think he could be put under pressure if we bought somebody like Gyökeres from Coventry.
I was going to ask you your thoughts on him. Would you bring in someone like that?
I would bring him in. If they're looking for 20, 25 million, I'd bring him in, because I think the lad's a very good player. He works his socks off, and he scores goals. And I think the one thing that he wants to do, he wants to take players on, he wants to get in the box, he wants to get on the end of things. And now we've got better players in the wide positions that get better service in. And I'll go back to what Rob says about Robinson. His final ball in is terrible. And I think if he gets 20 crosses in a game, maybe 3 or 4 might be in the right areas to attack. So that's one thing that he has to work on. It's all well and good being up and down and up and down. Not many people are getting past you. But as Rob said, these days when he gets in that final third, he's got to get quality balls in, and he doesn't get enough in. So those will be my 3. 1 centre-half, 1 attacking midfield player, and 1 centre-forward.
Okay. Emilio, you're going to have the final word on this. Your 3 top priorities.
Gordon stole my thunder, to be honest. I think attack.
3 goalkeepers.
Striker, without saying, I think we've been saying for a few seasons now, we haven't really got enough backup there for Mitrovic. I think that's been lacking for a number of seasons. I agree with Gordon. I think maybe this is putting it out there. How indispensable is Mitrovic? I'm just saying he's never been under pressure. When he dips in form, look at it. He was carrying that knock around the World Cup, post World Cup. He was never the same player. So when he came back, he took a while to come back from injury. Then all the nonsense at Old Trafford, but. To be honest with you, he's got to sort out his injury now, because at the end of the day, he wasn't a player post World Cup as he was before when he scored all those goals, and he was touted as potentially being the record goal scorer in the Premier League. So he needs a bit of pressure there, to be honest, because no player is indispensable as far as I'm concerned, and he's never had any competition for places. And although we missed him when he had his 8-game bat, and I thought Vinicius grew into that role. I don't think he's the right player. I think we need to move on. But you saw a different type of player. He was more attacking, more offensive, chasing balls down, forcing errors from the defence. So I saw another side of his game in the last 6-7 games when Mitrovic was suspended, than prior to that. But definitely we need a backup striker without a shadow of a doubt. I'm glad, Gordon, you mentioned a bit about Pereira. He divides opinion, doesn't he? I think for me, from set pieces, excellent. From penalties, I'm sure he'll have a better record than Mitrovic. From corners, free kicks, fantastic. I don't think he does it. He's not quick enough, and his final ball from open play sometimes it lacks the quality that we need. I think there'll be times, especially in the home games, that I go week in, week out. Sometimes he's had so much time, so much space. He's either a little bit selfish, makes the wrong decision. I just feel that we need a bit of a quality then. Is Carvalho the player to bring back? Absolutely not. I don't want him anywhere near the club.
I knew you were going to go there.
I don't want him back, to be honest.
Okay.
But I think Pereira, there's some games when he's outstanding, but there'll be times when he frustrates play. He frustrates fans. It's frustrated me, people around me as well. So, Gordon, you've hit the nail on the head. I think he needs some competition there. Because I just think from open play, his contribution could be better. And I think it goes without saying defensively. Tosin, I think, will go. I think Rob said off air.
Yep.
If he's only got, 1 year left of his contract, if we get a decent deal, he'll probably go. I disagree about the Diop comment. I actually think Diop actually doesn't get enough credit. I actually think he's got a lot to grow into that role. And with Tim Ream, I think him and Tim Ream have forged a good relationship there. But how long can Tim Ream go on for? So at least one centre back for sure. And ultimately, we need stronger competition in all places. And we keep saying, we have to always have 2 good players for each position. We're not quite there yet. And Gordon, you mentioned it. If we want to push on, we just have to make some subtle improvements. So we've got cover in all those positions. Good cover.
Okay. Excellent show, guys. This has been fantastic. I've really enjoyed it. I hope all 3 of you have enjoyed joining us. This has been fun. It's been a while since we've done a show. We shouldn't let it be so long until we do another show, because this is great. I want to go to final thoughts from all 3 of you. First, over to you, Gordon. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been wonderful. What are your thoughts before we end the show?
No, I've enjoyed it, and it's been great to talk to you and Rob and listen to Emilio. It's been a while since we've done it, and I've missed talking to the three of you, to be perfectly honest with you. But after such a good season, it's just nice to get back and have a bit of banter and talk about what we've all enjoyed this season. So fingers crossed we go onwards and upwards next year, and I think we'll all be looking at various media outlets waiting for that Marco Silva new contract to come out. So that's all I can say. As long as he signs, we'll be fine next year.
I agree with you. And one thing I want to add before I go over to Rob is that I really enjoy, and I missed the Gordon and Emilio banter. I've enjoyed that fully in this episode. Rob, over to you again. As always, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
It's a pleasure. It's always great to jump on with you two, and the banter with Gordon and Emilio is always nice to listen to and watch. Body language and relegation that wasn't mentioned. I don't think it was mentioned at all. So I think Gordon called out.
He did.
He mentioned the word relegated, but he didn't say relegation.
Right.
Okay.
But
Russ will edit it. I know.
I think you're right, Russ. I think we should have a more regular slot of every sort of 2 months or something like that, jumping on for an hour just to every 10 or 12 games or something like that, and just get our thoughts and where we're at. And I'm always up for sparing you an hour and a half of my time, no problem. And I'm looking forward to the fixtures coming out when they do, and you can plan. Well, you can't plan your season because Sky mess that up by travel arrangements and etc. So you have to do it month by month. But I'm really looking forward to, as I say, the news of Marco signing his 3 or 4 year deal would be the biggest, best signing that Fulham would have made for many, many years.
Yeah, I actually want to see this on pay-per-view. Thank you for mentioning this, Chris. I think definitely on pay-per-view. Emilio, final thoughts before we go.
It's always a pleasure.
I like it.
Cheers, Chris. Anyway, but always a pleasure to do the show with the guys, and it's always good banter, and honest opinion, honest chats and discussion. Like I said, I can't believe the fixtures are out in a couple of days' time, so it's crazy. Yep. I've got a bit of a dilemma. I remember a couple of weeks ago, my wife was saying we've got an invitation to go down to Devon in August. And I went, okay, that sounds good. Why do we go away for the weekend? I said, what date is it? It's the first game of the season. I said, can we wait till Thursday the 15th?
Thursday, yeah.
The look I got was something that was priceless, to be honest. I said, look, wait till the 15th. Let's see if we get a home game. I was away for the Liverpool game last year. I was at a wedding abroad, so I couldn't go to the Liverpool game. So don't really want to miss a home game. But we've got an invitation. What do you do? Dilemma. People watching, let me know what you think I should do.
You just turn up late. You go to the game and you turn up late.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we got maybe, I don't know, a game that's sort of closer to maybe Bournemouth away, a little bit closer.
Brighton, Brighton it can't be Southampton. Brighton or Bournemouth, then you could probably do the weekend and slot that in at some point, with Sky permitting.
It's been a good show, guys. Good show, and again, there's lots to look forward to. And like you said, let's ignore all the speculation, because it's just that's what the media have got nothing else to report on at the moment, have they? So, let's just fingers crossed we get on with business, get it done early. More important, get the business done early, and then it's American tour, Russ. I think you're going to hopefully go to a couple of games as well. So,
yep, I'm actually going to be at the match in Philadelphia. I'm looking forward to that, and hoping to bring my entire family. So that should be interesting. Going to see Fulham. They have never seen Fulham, so I'm looking forward to going to Philadelphia. I can't wait to see Fulham again stateside. So I'm looking forward to going to the match in Philadelphia. Max will be at the match in Maryland and also the match in Philadelphia. So I'll meet up with him for the match in Philadelphia, but I can't wait to Fulham coming to America. That's going to be fun. So anyways, I just want to say thank you, everyone that's watched live. We had a huge live audience. So thank you, everyone that's watched live, and thank you, everyone that watches and listens to Cottage Talk. We really appreciate it. And we cannot let this be this long until the four of us get back together, because this is so much fun. But I am going to wrap this up. For Emilio Danello, Fulham legend Gordon Davies, and Fulham legend Rob Wilson, I'm Russ Goldman. Thank you as always for watching and listening to Cottage Talk, part of the talkSPORT Fan Network.